Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in this video I'm going to explain how to build the infrastructure on AWS with Terraform to implement a CI/CD pipeline for ECS Fargate. So this architecture consists of a VPC and the desired tasks are two, and each task is deployed on each public subnet with Fargate, and each task belong to the same ECS service. So in this, an application load balancer is used to balance the load between the two tasks. So here are a few steps for the setup of our infra with the use of AWS and Terraform. So firstly, we have to create an IAM role and code commit credentials. So in the next step, uh, we have to write Terraform script to build the infrastructure, then ECR, ECS, ECS service, CI/CD pipeline, S3 bucket to store the artifacts. So in code line, we will specify source, build, deploy stages, and the step third, we have to maintain our Docker file, and for the step four, we have to create tf dot uh, hyphen var and put these three basic amounts of Terraform like Terraform init, Terraform plan, and Terraform apply. So in the next step, we have to upload Docker file, code, and build spec file to the code commit repo. In the next, we have to create the pipeline, check our ECS service, and check the target group, and also check the operation of application load balancer. So in this case, the main goal is to implement a Docker that contains a simple HTTP server built with, and this server allows you to obtain the private IP of each task. If I put new changes to the code commit repo, code pipeline detect those changes, trigger the pipeline, create a new Docker image, and then deploy it to the ECS service. So let's look into the script. So first we have to in the first we talk about the ECR and ECS. So basically, ECR is a Docker container registry which is easiest to store, share, and deploy the container images in which we have to put our resource, and this is our ECS cluster, and then this is resource, and we name that is cluster. Dev is our name of cluster, and this is our task definition in which we also put our resources. Then the then network mode requires compatibility, CPU, memory, and execution roll on. The next one is, as you all know, that we have to uh, so in this we have to configure the AWS provider, in which the provider is AWS and the region is US East one. So this is my region, and this is my provider, which is also is AWS. Yeah. So the next one is Docker file. So this is my Docker file, in which we have to choose from as a form, in which we have to work, write a copy, and build the application and build a small image. Yeah, so this is my Docker file. So after this, the next one is VPC. So basically, VPC is virtual private network, virtual private cloud. Sorry. So as you all know that for the VPC code, we have to put our resources, which is AWS VPC, and the CIDR block, and the tags, and the name of my VPC is ECS VPC, and we have another is public subnet, So in this, the resource and the count, the VPC ID and the availability zones and the CIDR block and the map public IP on launch, which is true, and the tag and the name of my public subnet is pub subnet. So next one is internet gateway. Yeah, the VPC script has VPC subnets and inter gateway resources in which the so the next one is our variable. So we have to describe a resource which is variable and the type is string and the default is this. And the next one is AWS, in which we have to describe variable type default, and another is subnet IP and the type and the default is this. So this is our variable.tf. So the next one is security group for application load balancer, in which firstly we have to put resource and the name of our security group of application load balancer, and the description is port 80. So next one is our VPC ID, which we have created earlier, and the ingress and the egress. So basically the ingress and egress rules allow you to grant access to Google Cloud resource in a parameter based on the content of the API request. So in which we have the descriptions port to port and the protocol and the CIDR block and the IPv6 CIDR block. So same as in the address description to port, from port to port, from the port to port protocol and the CIDR blocks. So basically CIDR block is classless internet domain routing. So the next one is s3.tfe, in which we have for the storing of our artifacts. So firstly we have the variables description default and resource and the name of my bucket and the tags. Yeah, so this is our S3 bucket. So the next is our route table, which is associated with the VPC. So firstly we have to put our resources and the name and the VPC ID and the resources for the route table and the route table ID and the destination CIDR block and the gateway ID. And the next one is resource for the AWS route, the count and the subnet ID and the route table ID. So the next we have the roles and policies. So in this we have the resource, that is IAM role, and the next one is in which I have the actions, effect and principle. We have to put our roles and policies for this infra. So yeah, this is our roles and policies, in which we have the policies of JSON code. So the action is for code commit, which we have from the git, and the service is for the codebuild.amazon.com. And the version is 2012, 10, 17. So in the next we have application load balancer. So the load balancer defines that's the load between the two tasks, in which we have to first put resources and the name and the tag, subnets, target group, listener. Yeah, in the resource we have the internal load balancer type, which is application, security group, subnets and the target group, and the name of our target group and the port, protocol, VPC ID and the target group, and the listener, in which we have to put resource and the load balancer, ARN, port, protocol, default action, type, target group, AN. Yeah, so next one is buildspec.yml. So this file is very important to create the Docker image and pull it to ECR repo. To update the ECS service, is important to specify the container name and the image URI in a JSON file with the name image definition.json. This file is an artifact This file must be in the code repo. So the next one is code build. So yeah, this is our code build course in which the data, in which we have the resources, in which we have the artifacts. So in which we have the environment, compute type, image pool credentials, which is code build, and the privilege mode, which is false, and the type is, as you know, that Linux container. So there are some logs, S3 logs, uh, and the source, as you all know, that our source type is GitHub, and the location, which is our repo make, and the click on depth is 0. So there are also roles for the IAM role code build container. So basically, IAM role and policies is necessary to create, which is allow access to ECR to push and pull the Docker image in the ECR repo. Also, it is necessary to access the S3 bucket to store the artifacts. So the next one is code pipeline. So the code pipeline, in which we have to first declare our variables, and the variables is GitHub branch, which is description, and you all know that GitHub, and our GitHub is master and the variable, and this is our GitHub repo name, and the location of our repo, and this is our GitHub token. So and the type is string. So yeah, so this is are some steps for the creation of this infra. So the next one is data. So in which we have to declare IAM role, pipeline role, and the name of my data is code pipeline role, and the data IAM role, ECS task, and the name of the task is ECS task execution role. So these are few steps for the creation of this infra, in which we have to fill stage, check the ECS service, and check the target group. So after these, we have to put these three commands: Terraform init, Terraform plan, and Terraform apply. So this is how Terraform can deploy your application on ECS.